Today we new chapter, that is chapter number 2 according to your textbooks, consumer behavior and utility analysis. We will study what is utility, the features of utility, importance of utility, and different theories and principles or laws that are based on the term utility. First, let us analyze what is utility. It is something that is something useful for you or something that is giving use to you. So that is known as utility. In economics, utility means the capacity of a good to satisfy a human want. See, utility means something, quality that satisfies a human want. If I want something, a product I have bought a cold drink. If I'm feeling hot, I have bought a cold drink or an ice cream for myself, and it is satisfying. I want the particular product at the particular time, so it is satisfying me. The quality that is giving me satisfaction, or it is coming out, my desire is being satisfied, that quality is known as utility. Any product or any service that is satisfying me in one way or the other, that quality is known as utility. So utility is, in economic terms, is a capacity of a good to satisfy a human want. And Mrs. John Robinson, who is supposed to be a renowned economist, has defined utility as: utility is the quality in commodities that makes individuals want to buy them. In fact, the individuals want to buy commodity shows that they have utility. So if I'm buying something, that means the product has utility. If it has no utility, I am not buying the particular product. If something is satisfying me, if something is fulfilling my desire or my wish, that is having utility, a quality known as utility. Next we will do is features of utility. Characteristics of utility, what they say. First characteristic is subjective or psychological concept. What do you mean by the term subjective concept? Subjective concept means it differs from person to person. Objective means it is commonly universal. It is universal. But subjective means it differs from person to person. I may be a vegetarian. The other person sitting next to me is a non-vegetarian. The other may be a vegetarian. So something that is satisfying or something that is differing from one person to another is known as a subjective concept. Now, how utility is a subjective concept? See, it differs from person to person and it depends on the taste and preferences. If you take an example, if I say I love to eat chocolates, that means that is a subjective concept. I may be liking it. That chocolate would giving me utility, but a person who is not a lover of chocolate or a person who is a diabetic who is not permitted to eat chocolate, that chocolate will not be of utility to that person. So it is a subjective concept. For me, it would be giving utility. For the other person, it may be not. So utility is always a subjective concept. Next feature of utility is relative concept. It is different. In subjective concept we studied that it is different from person to person. Relative we will study it differs from place to place, from time to time. Something that has utility, suppose if I say a child needs milk in the morning, right? He goes out, or say if he goes out for school, he needs milk in the morning. If the milkman is not coming in the morning, gives the milk in the afternoon, that means that relativity or utility of milk has gone. It carried more utility in the morning than in the afternoon. And similarly, if I say I want to buy an umbrella in the month of October or November, there is no utility of that umbrella. But that same umbrella will have a lot of utility in the month of July and August when it is useful. So relative concept, it means that the time and the place and the manner depends a lot, and the utility is more when there is a time or a place for something, and it carries less weightage when the time has passed. Next feature is no moral consideration. It may no moral means it may be an unethical. If I say I have a bottle of liquor or a packet of cigarettes before me, that cigarette is very important if it is satisfying. If I am a smoker, it has a lot of utility. Does that carry a moral consideration? Is it ethical to go in for liquors or cigarettes? No, it is an unethical issue. So utility is not the base for any moral consideration. Utility means something that is satisfying. It could be anything. It could be bad, it could be good, it could be ethical, it could be unethical, it could be immoral, right? So it has no moral consideration. Utility could be anywhere and everywhere. Next feature for utility is no objective measurement. No objective measurement here means that exactly you cannot measure the concept of utility. It is difficult to measure it in the terms. You can always measure it like in a numerical term, that is cardinal 1, 2, 3, so on. Right, in order of the preference. You do not have an objective or a standardized way of measuring the utility. It could be any numerical way of ordering or ranking them in 1, 2, 3, etc. Next feature of utility is different from usefulness. Different from usefulness means utility, something that has utility means that is satisfying you, but it may not be useful for you. See, something that if I say, if I am a smoker and there is a packet of cigarette kept before me, and it has a full utility if I am a smoker, but is it useful? Is it giving me it is of any use to me? No. So a concept of utility is very different from the concept of usefulness. A product may have utility means it is serving you, satisfying you, but it is not useful for you. Next is different from pleasure. If I am a patient of diabetes and you have a medicine kept before me, that medicine, or if I am an asthmatic patient and you have an inhaler kept before me, that is of lot of utility to me because it's giving me so much of it is satisfying my desire. I want to have that medicine because it will cure me. But is it giving me any pleasure? Am I feeling very good or something in the third world if I'm taking those medicines? No, it's not giving me any kind of pleasure. Out of pleasure I'm not having the medicines, but because I want to have it, that's why I'm having it. So utility is different from the term pleasure, right? Next feature is depends on the intensity of wants. Right, depends on wants in the sense like it depends on the intensity. The more intensity of the wants, it will provide you more utility. If I say I want the commodity now, I'm feeling hungry, I want to have the food now, so it will have very much utility. It will have a lot of utility. That food will be very utilized for you at that point of time when you require it the most. But a point will come when you will not be hungry, so that if the food is kept before you, that will not provide that utility that would have been provided when you were hungry and when you were wanting the food. Next is it forms the basis of demand. See, basis of demand, if there is a utility for a product, if you want that product, if that product is providing you any kind of utility, then only you will demand for that product. If it's not providing any utility, you will not go in for the product. So definitely if you say that I want this particular product, it will provide me utility, then the demand for that product will increase, and the vice versa. Next feature is utility is multi-purpose. If you have sugar at your place, you see how much utility it is providing. Somebody will love to have sugar in coffee, would like to have sugar in your the juices which you make, would like to have it in tea. So that one particular product or one thing is providing utility to satisfy so many wants. Last is utility is intangible. Utility is intangible means you cannot touch it. You can only feel, you cannot see it. You can only feel that yes, if you have eaten the food that provided you utility. You cannot find or you cannot see, there is no physical appearance of the utility. It's only you can feel it that yes, this product has provided me lot of utility, or this product has not provided me any utility. So it is an intangible concept. These were the features of utility. Next is Types or forms of utility. Utility can be derived in different forms. There are different forms of utility. Some we will be studying as. First is form utility. You know what is form utility? If you take the example, if I say I have something that is in a raw form. If you talk about the petrol, it is taken out of the petroleum, or there is a long process to, there is crude oil, then you get crude oil, you get some kerosene, then you get gaseous products, then you get the crude form of petrol, and finally you get the petrol that is filled in your vehicles. So if you get a crude petrol, will that be useful? No. So when the crude petrol, the form is changed into the final, that will be of utility to you, because only that could be used in your vehicles to run it, right? So form utility is very important, because something you can see, if you say the raw steel that is kept before you, is it of any utility to? No. So form means if you make it into any kind of a container, it will carry a form utility. Next is place utility. If I am staying in the state of Maharashtra and I am not able to fulfill some desires because some products are not available in the state, so what I'll do, I will get the products from some other state where they are available. So that creates a place utility. That particular product will not be of utility in that state because it's in ample. There is lot of production, people are getting it like anything. So that product will have a lot of place utility in my state where it is not available. Next is time utility. Time is very important factor in when you talk about utility. As I told you earlier, if there is a month of summers that are going on and you want to buy an air conditioner, then that creates a time utility. That is the time when it is most utilized. So that air conditioner will give you the utility in that particular time period only. If you buy it in the month of October, November or December, it will not be of much utility to you, but it will carry utility only when the time of it comes. So time plays an important factor when you talk of utility. Next is service utility. If you want to conduct a lecture, if you say you want to understand the concept of any concept, maybe of accounts, economics, anything, then you won't want to have teachers to come and give. So if I say, suppose if there is a student who says I don't understand the particular concept of accountancy, then I would call in for a teacher who would let you know the concept. So that is a service utility. A teacher standing before you will be of much utility. Or should I call a doctor for it? No. That doctor will not be of utility because you want something for that particular task. You want to clear some kind of a subject. So for that task, the service utility will be provided by the teacher. Next is possession utility. If I am the seller, I have number of brands of soaps available with me, so that will not be a possession utility. But possession utility means if that brand, if I'll be an owner of the cars of a car showroom, that will not be a possession utility. Possession utility means the ownership utility that you have when you possess that particular thing that you wanted. So that possession or utility will be more to the person who buys that particular car from me, right? From the seller to the buyer. Last kind of utility is knowledge utility. If I want to know something now of a particular product, and if I get to know through some kind of an ad, or I may be surfing the Google or any other web engine, so that is knowledge utility. If I get the knowledge of a particular product or a service or a place at that time when I require it, that means I have the knowledge utility for that. So these are the different types of utility. Form, you have the place utility, time, service, possession, and knowledge utility. Next thing that will you do is the total utility and marginal utility concept. I will explain you the total and the marginal utilities with the help of a schedule and a diagram. This is total and the marginal concept, which means the addition. Total utility means all utilities derived by a consumer from all the units of a commodity. I will explain you. If I am hungry and I had a chapati before me, I had one bite of the chapati, right? Alright, now then I had the second bite, then I had the third bite, then I had the fourth bite. Right? So first, second, third, fourth, addition of all bites, that is known as total utility. So total utility means the utility that is derived after having the meals that were kept before me. If I had a chapati, I had just 4 bites and it is giving me utility. That means total utility means the utility that I derived by having the particular product. Right? Marginal utility, what do you mean by the term marginal utility? It is the additional utility. See, I explain. First you have 1 bite of chapati, then you had the second bite. It has given you more utility. Means you had first, now you want more. So you had the second bite. Now you had the third bite. It has given you more utility. Then you had the fourth bite. Right? Now what happens? Now you are satisfied. You don't want to have more of the food. You are filled. So that fifth bite will not give you a lot of utility because you are already reached the point of satisfaction. Now your utility will start declining. So utility, marginal utility means extra. This bite has given you some utility. This has given you more utility. So that extra utility provided by all the bites will be known as the marginal utility. Right? Suppose first bite is providing you somewhere around 40. If I say 40 units of utility, other is providing you 50, other is providing you 70, then you have 100. So first is 40, next is 10. So what is the additional extra? 10 units of utility. The extra 20 units. The extra 30 units. So the extra from one step to the other, what extra you are getting is known as the marginal utility. And total means the addition of all the units that you have consumed. Now the same concept has been explained in the terms of formula and the schedule. Symbolically you have TU equals to MU. Right? T is total utility. Right? This is total utility equals to, this is known as summation or addition of marginal utility. Right? Total utility is the addition or summation of marginal utility. This is, you can explain the term total utility and marginal utility symbolically. Now we will have the schedule of the total and the marginal utility. We will see how we calculate it and we will draw the diagram for the same. Suppose you have units of a commodity. You want to have chocolates. Right? Then you have the total utility and the marginal utility. You have the total utility and you have the marginal utility. You had first, you ate, you want to have chocolate, you had the first bite, then you had the second one, then you picked up more, you had the third, you had 4, 5, you kept on having chocolates, you have suppose 6 pieces of chocolates, right? When you had the first piece, it gave you 8 units of, suppose you say 8 units of total utility, right? Then it gave you 14. It's just fictitious figures. It gave you 18. You want to have more and more. Then 20. Then you were satisfied. Then you never wanted to have more. So it remained same. Then it started declining. Once you want to have chocolates, you said okay 8. Then you want to have more. It gave you 14 units of utility. Then it gave you 18 units. Then it gave you 20. Now you said now you don't want to have more. Now the utility will start declining. This is total utility. Now how you calculate marginal utility? First is, this will be in the terms of units. First unit, it will be 8 only, right? It will be the same. Next is 14 minus 8, 6. 18 minus 14, 4. 20 minus 18, 2. This will be 0 and this will be minus 3. Alright, now see how you get it. First unit of chocolate, you got 8 units of total utility. Next unit you got 14 units. That means how many extra units? You had 16 units extra. Alright, then after 14 you had 18 units. So you had how many extra? 4 units extra satisfaction you got. After 18 you had 20. How many extra units? 2 units extra of satisfaction. Then after 20 again, there was no satisfaction, you just had it. So you got no satisfaction. Then after 20, the total utility decreased to 17. Now what you said? Now you said, I am filled, now it's not giving me any utility, instead it's creating some problem in me. So that will give you negative utility. This is how you calculate you have the units of chocolates given before you. This is the total unit given in the question, and you calculate the marginal utility. With the help of units, total utility and marginal utility, we will draw the diagram for total utility and marginal utility. Now we will draw the total and the marginal utility curves on the axis that is given to us. See, we will have the marginal and the total utility on the OY axis, and we will have units of commodity on the OX axis. This is OY and this is OX. You have units of chocolates on the OX axis, and you will have total utility and marginal utility on the OY axis, right? So please make sure that you have, starting from the point 0, you will have utility 2, 4, 6, 8. We will have till 22, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. This is, you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 and 20. You have the utility. Then you have the units of chocolates as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. Next thing that we will do is, you have utility in minus also. So you will have minus figures also. Minus 2 and minus 4. The same thing that we had on the O-axis. This is, if you remember, you must have studied the quadrants. Figure below the 0 will give you minus things and above will give you the positive effects. Now we will plot the total utility first. We will see what was the total utility when the units were 1, 8. So when the units were 1, the total utility was 8. In the schedule when it was 2, what was the total utility? 14. So at 2 it was 14. Next it was 18. At 3 it was 18. At 4 it was 20. At 4 it was 20. At 5 it was 20 again, and at 6 it was 17. So it had dropped down to 17. This is how you will make your total utility curve. It will be, you will have a freehand curve. This is how you got your total utilities. Alright, you have the total utility. Next you have to plot the marginal utility. At 1 unit your marginal utility was 8. At 1 unit it was 8. Next at 2 units it was 6. 2 units it was 6. At 3 units it was 4. 3 units it went down to 4. It was 2 at 4 units. Down more, 2. Then it was 0 at 5 units. Then it was -3. It was -3 somewhere here. So you will have this point, this, then you had 0, then it was -3. This is marginal utility curve. Alright, the total and the marginal utility curves you have made. This is known as the point of, I will just let you know, you will have, you love to eat at this point, right? This point, that is, it's giving you the maximum satisfaction. This, after this, the total utility is decreasing and marginal has gone to negative. So this is known as point of safety. This is known as a point of safety where total is constant and marginal has become 0. After that, the total utility will decline and marginal utility will be on the negative side. This is how you will plot the total utility and the marginal utility curves on given in the schedule. Accordingly, you will plot them. So you will have at the fifth unit, your total utility is 0 and marginal utility is also the same, and after that this is declining and marginal utility has declined and become negative. This was how you made your total utility and marginal utility schedules. With the help of the schedules, you have made the diagrams of total utility and marginal utility. Next, law of diminishing marginal utility, or DMU as it is said. The law of diminishing marginal utility states that as the other things remaining same or being equal, as the number of units consumed of a commodity increases, the marginal utility of that commodity diminishes. You remember we studied that as you increase the chocolates from 1 chocolate to 2 to 3 to 4, total utility, this is units, total utility increases. Suppose it is 18, then you have 19, then 20, then 20, then 17, right? And marginal utility also declines. So on this concept, the law of diminishing marginal utility is based. It means that other things being equal, as the number of units consumed of a commodity increases, the marginal utility of the commodity diminishes. That is, the economist Alfred Marshall puts in his words, the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase in his stock diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. So every additional means from 1 to 2 it's increasing, 2 to 3 it's increasing, but a time comes when you have an extra unit, that is that marginal utility. Why they say marginal utility? Because you're studying that extra unit. So extra or additional you study under marginal. So whenever you take an extra unit, that will diminishes, or as you take in extra units, the law of diminishing marginal utility applies, which means that on the intake of every additional or extra unit, the utility decreases. Now we will have the schedule for the same, that is schedule you will have for the diminishing marginal utility as we had for the utilities, and we will have the diagrammatic representation as you studied. Now we will study the law of diminishing marginal utility according to that. This is the utility, the total utility and the marginal utility. These were the units, right? You had the units and you had the utility on this OY axis, and OX axis you have the units of a commodity, and you had the minus figures below this. Now what you did, what you had the diagram as total utility was decreasing, right? With that, marginal utility also at a point decreased and it became 0. This was the total utility and this was the marginal utility. The same concept, that is the diminishing marginal utility. Marginal utility curve slopes downwards from left to right. It indicates that the consumer consumes more of the units. It goes on diminishing. As you are consuming 1 chocolate, then it becomes this. This is on the consumption of 1 chocolate. When you consume 2 units of chocolate, the marginal utility decreases. When you consume the 3, it decreases more. When you consume the 4, it decreases more. And finally, 5th unit and at the 6th unit, it becomes 0 and negative. The marginal utility curve intersects the x-axis when the consumer has the 5th. I told you when you have the 5th unit, it is intersecting. Alright, unit, it indicates the point of maximum satisfaction, or this point what we called it as point of safety. Alright, next is marginal utility curve slopes downwards below x-axis when the consumer consumes more than 5 units, indicates negative marginal utility. After 5th unit, the marginal utility becomes negative. Now we will study the assumptions of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Assumptions of the law of diminishing marginal utility. What do you mean by the term assumptions? Certain things when you do, you assume it will be like this, that is why the law runs. So there are certain assumptions that need to be followed. First assumption of the law of diminishing marginal utility is cardinal measurement. First assumption is cardinal measurement. It is assumed that utility can be measured in cardinal or numerical terms. We have already studied cardinal measurement means utility can be measured, but it can be measured only in the numerical terms, as we studied the units. That is, at this unit you will be total utility will be derived this, and this will be the marginal utility. So cardinal means it will be expressed but in the form of units, and that you can explain with the help of a schedule and turn the schedule into the diagram. Next assumption is this is the assumption because they say utility can be measured only with the help of numbers. Next is continuity in consumption. Continuity in consumption means, suppose we studied you had 1 chocolate, then you had 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6 units. This provided utility, and here it started decreasing and became negative. So there should be a continuity in consumption. Suppose you have 1 unit, 2 units and you stop and you say I don't want to have more. So this will not be applicable in the law of diminishing marginal utility. So it is assumed that you are continuously intaking the units. So there is no break in the continuity of the consumption. So this is form of an assumption here. Next assumption of the law of diminishing marginal utility is ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus means every other thing remaining the same. See, suppose you have ceteris paribus means if I say I'm fond of chocolates and I can have it any number of chocolates. So definitely the law of diminishing marginal utility will never be applicable. So only one factor, that means there is a commodity in front of me and I'm having it, and at a point will come that I will be satisfied and my satisfaction will go now below it, right? So that is a ceteris paribus, all other things remaining the same. All other things means if I say if I'm having chocolates and I can have it anymore, that means my utility will never diminish. So assumption is there that yes, other things, that means my likes, dislikes, preferences, everything will remain the same, and only one thing that will be applicable is ceteris paribus. Next is homogeneity. Homogeneity means the units should be identical, the commodity should be identical in size, color. If I say I had first unit of a commodity that was large, second unit was very small, third was the smallest, so my utility will not increase. It will increase and increase and increase. It will not diminish. So homogeneity means all the units should be similar in color, size, shape, etc. This is the other assumption to the law of diminishing marginal utility. Next assumption is rationality. Rationality means a person who is consuming should be rational. He should not be a person who is insane or a drunkard or a hypnotized person. If he is not a rational person, law will not apply. Why? Because if you say if you are under the influence of drugs, you can have more and more and more, you will never be satisfied. So that this law will not operate. That utility will never go down. It will keep on increasing and you will keep on having it. So a person who is having a product should be rational. So this is another assumption of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Next is reasonable units. Reasonable units means that units of a commodity consumed should be reasonable size, that is, they should be of a standard size. If it is very large, you will just have one and you will be fulfilled, right? Reasonable means of a standard size, that should be rationality. I mean, that standard word that we already did the point, that was different. Homogeneity means that all units should be similar. Reasonable means it should be practically intakeable or consumable. That is you mean by reasonable. So this is another assumption for the law of diminishing marginal utility. Next is exceptions to the law. Exceptions means cases where the law of diminishing marginal utility does not apply. Exceptions means the law is not applicable. First exception is hobbies. If a particular task is your hobby, you will never be satisfied and it will never come down. That is, it is an exceptions to your hobbies that law of diminishing marginal utility will not apply. If you have a habit of, see, they have given example, if you have a habit of collecting stamps, you will never be ruined, or you will never be, your utility will never decrease for the stamps. It will go on increasing with all the additional units. You have one stamp today, you want more, the second tomorrow, the third, maybe more and more. So utility will never decline in the hobby. In the case of hobbies, it will always keep on increasing. So law will not apply to your hobbies. Next is, you have the drunkards or the drug addicts. As I've already told you, if you have the drunkards or the drug addicts, it will not be applicable, because you will never know that how much you are consuming and will your utility will ever be increase or come on the decreasing phase or not. So the liquor and the drugs, the utility will always keep on increasing, it will never decrease. So law will not apply to this factor also. Next exception is miser. If you talk about the misers, in that miser's case also this will not work, because if you have some money today, the utility of that money will increase day by day, again and again. You want to keep hold of that money, it will never decrease. So that will not apply in the case of the misers. Next is, you have an interest of something, you can have, see, it is just you have interest for a particular thing, right? So if you have interest for music or collecting different CDs of a particular singer or a composer or a music, so you will have, the interest will keep on increasing, it will never go down. So law of diminishing does not apply to this. It means, law of diminishing means it will increase to a particular point of time, and after that it will stop increasing and it will fall. Why? Because now you are satisfied to your fullest. So that will not be in the case of interest. Next is again the money. For the money also it is just the same case. It will keep on increasing, it will never decrease. So from the above explanation, it can be observed that it is not apparent or real, it could be in any of the phases you have to have. So exceptions are in the cases of hobbies, drunkards, miser and interest. Next is the significance of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Significance or importance of the law of diminishing marginal utility. You have where all the law of diminishing marginal utility is important, or where all it works. First is, it becomes the basis of other economic laws. The law of diminishing marginal forms the basis of other laws, like the law of demand, like law of elasticity, equimarginal utility. How it becomes the law? Because of this law of diminishing marginal utility, you come to know, or the producer comes to know, that till when the particular product will be in demand, and when the people will be satisfied, and when they will stop demanding. Suppose if I say there is a demand for woolen clothes that keeps on increasing in the month of November and December, when people are satisfied till February, it goes down in the month. So that will help the producer to form the demand. It will come to know that exactly the demand will be in which months, when it will fall, and when he should stop manufacturing and stop the supply of the products. So it becomes the basis of other economic laws. Second importance is business decisions. It is helpful in taking important business decisions. As I told you, in the case of demand, the law of diminishing marginal utility is useful to the businessman to proper fix up the prices. I know today that my good is in lot of demand today. People will demand at any cost, so I can fix a higher price for that product. So that is an important decision. So, and when I will know that people will be satisfied, and after people will not purchase my product, so I will, at that point when they are satisfied and when they will stop purchasing, then I will decrease the price of my product. So how I know that? It is because of the law of diminishing marginal utility, which has helped me to take the business decision. Next is public finance. So see how you can have public finance. If the government needs money, government is falling short, how the government meets its expenditure? By the revenue that it collects, alright? And how it collects the revenue? In the form of taxes. So law of diminishing margin means that at a particular time when you have a high income, you will purchase the product, and at a point you will stop it when your income decreases. So government will start collecting more taxes from the people, so people will be left with less income, and hence they will stop consuming or consume less of a product. Again, the law will help the government in collecting the money from the people and help to take the finance decisions. Next is welfare measures. Sometimes government, what it does, it keeps on procuring the goods, right, and it keeps on distributing through rationing system or public distribution system. That is basically at a point of time, if the government is making the suppose the grains available, the gehu chawal that is available to the poor people through rationing system, then at a point will come when the people will have that particular thing and they want more of kerosene now, right? So again, the law of diminishing utility will work out, because the government will be able to know through this law that a point will come when the people will be satisfied with the units that they have been provided by the government, and after that they will not consume that unit because they already have stored or stocked that particular thing. So for the welfare measures also, the law is very important. Last is planning purchases. It helps in planning the purchases. The law of diminishing marginal utility can help the person in planning his purchases. A person came to know when he can attain satisfaction, when he will attain the maximum satisfaction. If I am consuming rice, suppose I want to buy rice, I know I will have, if there are 2 people in my family, I will just use 5 kg of rice. If I am consuming more, I'll use just 5 kg of rice in 1 month, right? Even if I buy 10 kgs, that will be of no use, because at a point you will eat more rice, and at a point when you have lot of consumption, the consumption will become constant and it will decrease. So again, the law of diminishing marginal utility is you will purchase only till the point a particular product is giving you satisfaction. After that, when it's not giving you satisfaction or the satisfaction is going in the negative, it is useless spending money in that point. So you have the law of diminishing marginal utility, where you have studied the last topic of the chapter, consumer behavior and utility analysis, is law of equi-marginal utility. So consumer has got amount of money, and that amount it will spend on the different units of commodities, and he will spend only till the time he is getting satisfaction out of the units. Statement of the law, you know what it is? Explanation of equi-marginal utility as marginal utility of X, that is one product, upon price of that product, is equals to marginal utility of another product upon price of the other product. Now how you will explain this? This is marginal utility of commodity X and marginal utility of commodity Y. Price of commodity X and price of commodity Y. According to this law, the consumer will go on purchasing each good up to a time. It will have both the goods, right? Each good, it says, it will consume or purchase each good up to the point at which the marginal utility per rupee spent on the same as marginal utility of rupees spent on each other good. That is marginal utility of one good and this is marginal utility of another product, right? So it will keep on spending till the time the marginal utility of one product equals to the marginal utility of the other product, or per rupee spent on one is same as the marginal utility of another rupee spent on the other product. So you can explain it this way: the marginal utility of a rupee spent shows marginal utility of money. Now I will explain you with the help of a table or a schedule so the things will be more clear. For that you will have units, and I will assume certain figures. First you will have units, then you will have marginal utility of X and marginal utility of Y. You will then again imply the formula for law of equimarginal, that is marginal utility of X upon price of X and marginal utility of Y upon price of Y. Units you can have from 1 to 7, as they say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, now you will have the marginal utility of X, that will be suppose 24, 21, 18, 15, 12, 9 and 6. 9 and 6. Then you will have marginal utility of Y, 20, 18, 16. You will have 14, 12, 10, 8. 14, 12, 10, 8. This is marginal utility that you have derived from X, and marginal utility. You had 1 unit of X, you had 24 of marginal utility, then 21, then it kept on decreasing. Marginal utility will always decrease, and this is marginal utility of Y. When you had 1 units of Y, it was 20, when 2 it was 18, 3 16, 7 it was 8. Now you will take out marginal utility of X upon PX, right? There are certain things which you need to assume. First is that the consumer has an income of rupees 29. Total money that he has is like total money that he has got to spend is 29 rupees, right? Total money that he has is rupees 29. Then there are two commodities X and Y that we have assumed. You have X and Y with you. Another assumption will be price of commodity X is 3 and price of this is 2. So this is rupees 3 and the price of Y is rupees 2, because you need the prices also, na? So price of X item is 3 and price of Y is 2. And last thing that you will assume is marginal utility of last rupee spent on each good is 4. That we will see how it works on. So first we will take out marginal utility of X upon PX. That is, what is this? 24 divided by 3. This is how you will take it out, right? 24 divided by 3, because 3 is the price of commodity X, so it will be 8. 21 divided by 3 will be 7. I'm writing it directly. 18 divided by 3 will be 6. 15 divided by 3 will be 5. 12 divided by 3 will be 4. 9 divided by 3 will be 3. 6 divided by 3 will be 2. Alright, now you come to marginal utility of Y. So it will be what? I'm just showing you the formula as I did for the first one. 20 divided by 2. That will be what? 10. Alright, next you do it similarly. 18 divided by 2 will give you 9. 16 by 2 will give you 8. 14 by 2 will give you 7. 12 by 2 will give you 6. 10 by 2 will give you 5. And 8 by 2 will give you 4. Alright, now you take the minimum of both. Marginal utility derived, that is for 7 units you are spending 3 rupees and you are getting 2. Here you are getting 4. So 4 is just standardized because there is no 4 is common basically. You have to take the minimum, it's going up to 4 here. So you take the 4 for this also. Now what you say, you are at the, if you take product X or good X or commodity X, you have spent how much intake is your 5 units, right? And for Y it is 7 units. That means you have taken 5 units, alright, you have paid 3 rupees, that is you have paid 15 rupees and you are getting a marginal utility of 4. I have taken 4 because see 5 is also similar, but you take the minimum. Minimum is 2 here. Is 2 present here? No. What is present? 4. So you will take the 4 here and you can make the comparative study. So for commodity X, you have purchased 5 units. Alright, 5 units, and how much you have paid it for? 3. So total money 15. And what is the utility that you have derived? 4 units. Alright, after calculation. For the same 7, how much you have paid? 2. So how much in all you have paid? 14. And how much you have derived? 4. Alright, so see, this is 15 plus 14. How much it gives you? 29. So that was the total money you have. You had to spend it like this. 15 and 14, it comes out to be 29. So it says, thus the consumer is in equilibrium and maximize utility at this point only. Alright, because after this point, what will happen? The money will start increasing. And what will happen then? You don't have that much of money to spend. So 29 is the ideal, that is at this point, that is at the 5 units you have the maximum. For commodity X it should be 5 units, and for commodity Y it should be 7 units. So this is how you have derived the utility for the different units. Alright, there are a few assumptions also. Let's study. The law is based on the following assumption: given income. The consumer has given income. See, we took an assumption that the money that is given to us is rupees 29 for the disposal to buy X and Y. So now you have rupees 29. You have spent 15 rupees on the purchase of commodity X, and you have spent 14 rupees on the purchase of commodity Y. You are purchasing both the commodities. Second assumption is spend given income. The consumer has to spend given income while purchasing the goods. The consumer has to spend the given income. If the income is there, you will not keep it. You have to spend it, the whole of the income. You cannot say you will just spend 25 rupees or 28 rupees. No. See, we have spent the whole income, 15 and 14, that gives you 29. Next is utility is independent. That is another assumption. It is assumed that the utility derived from a good is not dependent on the other good. The utility depends on the quantity purchase of one good alone. Utility here is how much? 5 units you are at the rate of 4. That means how much utility you are getting? You are getting how many units of utility? 12. And here you are getting how many units? 8. So it depends. It is varying. You don't have to bother. You don't have to compare the utilities. It is how much money that you are spending. What are the limitations of this law? Utility is not independent, but in reality it is dependent, they say. For example, the utility of TV set depends on the quality of TV programs. In most cases, the utility derived from good depends on the other goods. So you have a complement. You have to see both the things that are given to you. Alright, so this is how you have the units, you have the marginal utility of one, marginal utility of the another, and you have found out the equi-marginal utility, and you will see at which point you are getting the same. So we decided, okay, this is the least money, this is 4 you are spending on what? 4 you are getting on here, this is common 4. So after this you will not go, because 3 and 2 are not mentionable. So least you took, and coincidentally we calculated, and we saw and we found out that 15 rupees you have spent on consumption or purchase of commodity X, and 14 you have spent on commodity Y. So equi-marginal concept was different from diminishing. In diminishing marginal utility, you are just procuring, or you are just consuming one commodity, and you will see that how that one commodity gives you satisfaction. It keeps on giving you satisfaction. At a point the satisfaction becomes constant and it falls. And if you talk about the equi-marginal utility, it says how much satisfaction is being given by commodity X and commodity Y, and how much money you are spending. So that money feature or money aspect is attached to both the things. This is how you will study both the concepts. Another important thing is you should know the difference between marginal utility and the total utility. Right? So marginal is the additional utility and total is the sum of all the utilities. You should know the difference between the utility and the usefulness concept also. And there are certain questions important that are given to you in relation to the diminishing marginal utility. Very importantly, when they ask the diminishing marginal utility, you have to state what is diminishing marginal utility. You have to have the schedules, the connected diagrams with it, assumptions, exceptions, importance, everything to the law that is given to you. And when you study the equimarginal utility, you have the statement. If it is not given by any renowned economist, you can have your own, and if it is given, you write off that person's. Then you have the schedule given to it. There is no diagrammatic representation, only the schedule is mentioned in your syllabus. And after that, you have your assumptions. That is assumption we took, that we have a particular budget, and another thing, you will have your exceptions and your limitations for the same, that is for the equimarginal utility.